12 and the last of the increases for the top of the dress. We're going to slip stitch into the top of that chain 2 at the beginning of the round, close the round, and we're going to start work on the body. So to do that, we chain up 1, and we're going to be putting double crochets across here. What have we got? Double crochets across here, across 26 stitches. So we're going to put a double crochet into the first stitch just there, so it's below the chain 2. First stitch below the chain of 2, just here, so that's 1. And for the second and the second last stitch of those 26 stitches across, we're going to be putting in 2 double crochets. So 1 and 2 for the second stitch along. And then counting along 26 stitches, so that's 3, 4, and when you get to 25, you're going to put in 2 double crochets into that stitch, so I'll meet you there. Alright, and here I am at that 25th stitch, the second last stitch, so into that one we do 2 double crochets, 1 and 2, and then for the 26th, just 1 double crochet, and just like that. Okay, so now that I've completed those 6 rows of increase off the circle, I'm going to work on making a chain that's going to fit comfortably around my back. So snug so that it doesn't sag when you start to crochet in the skirt, but enough that, you know, it reaches around and joins at the other side. So I've actually done a demonstration of that for the an extended video on Patreon. But yeah, so just chaining a length, wrap it around yourself so that it fits snug around your back, because yeah, like I said, if you do it too loose, it's going to sag when you start to crochet in the skirt, and you don't want that because it can be a bit revealing. So yeah, so what for me it's 90 chains that I need to make so that it wraps around my back. So 1, 2, 3, I'm going to do 90 chains. Okay, now that I've done my chain of 90 and I've kept the chains fairly loose, and you'll see why in a minute, we're just going to go and pick up the other end, or the other side of our body, just there. And we're going to slip stitch into the last stitch on the other side. So just like that. Slip stitching actually, to begin with, make sure that's like that. Slip stitch into that final stitch on the other end. Just like that. And keep that end slip stitch fairly loose, because what we're going to do now to get working on the skirt, we're going to chain up 2, and we're going to turn and work straight back into the chain. But what we're going to be doing is putting our double crochets into the back bump of the chain. So let's try and focus the camera. So you can see here on the front of the chain there's a V. So the front looks like a V, but if you turn it over onto the back, you can see there's a third part of that V, or the third part of the chain, which is a little bump on the back of the stitch, well, chain. So we're going to be working our double crochets into that bump on the back. So that is yarn over, and the reason you want to keep your last chain fairly loose is because that first bump just there can be quite tricky to get your hook into, to work back into. So let's see if we can do it. Oh, no, probably not. I always have trouble with this one because I tend to forget to keep it quite loose. So you really want to try and stick it in. Actually, what I do is I keep on handy a smaller hook so that I can really get in there. Just one moment. Alright, so I've got my little 2mm, so using a much smaller hook, it's going to be a lot easier to get into that back bump of the first chains. Well, by a lot easier I mean just easier than using the size that you've already been using. So going into that little bump on the back, just like that, we're double crocheting into that. Trying not to knock the camera. And just do that. Just use a smaller hook if you can't manage it with a normal hook for the first stitch. So just doing that, and then we're going to go back to the normal sized hook. And yeah, just putting a double crochet into all the bumps all the way along there for the back. And this just sort of gives it a neater seam edging, a neater edging for the top. So there'll be like a braided look. The V on the top, the braided part, will be visible on the back instead of, you know, looking sort of, I don't know, just looks better. Anyway, so we'll do that. Okay, which may not matter anyway at the end, because if I've got enough yarn left, I'm going to go around and do a single crochet edging on the back and all the sides. So yeah, just go away, put all your double crochets into the back part of that chain all the way along till you get to the front part. I'll meet you at the end of that chain. Okay, so now that I've put all my double crochets into that chain, so I've done all of that, we're going to finish up the round by going into that front part that we've done. And because there was 6 rows of increase from that initial 26 stitches, there should be 38 more stitches along just here till we are completing the round. So just going to that first stitch there, right there, and just finish up the round by putting double crochets into all those stitches. I'll meet you at the end of the round and we'll talk about how we're going to go from there. So just double crochets all the way to the end. Alright, here I am at the end of the round. So to complete that round, we just slip stitch into the top of the chain 2. So that one just there. It's a little bit tight, but that's okay. Slip stitching to close the round. So just like that. Now from here what we do is, and I like to do this because it keeps the seam from drifting to the side. So what I do is I chain up 2, and now that we're working on the skirt, I'm going to turn the work and work back in the other direction. I'm going to keep doing this for each round, and 4 rounds, what have we got? Alright, so counting the chain of 90 as the 7th round, this one will be, we're on to round 9. So for rounds 9 through to 16, we're just going to be chaining 2 and putting double crochets, no increases into each, and we're not putting our first double crochet into that stitch right below the chain of 2. Going to go into the next one along. So just straight double crochets all the way around for each round. We're at rounds 19 through to 16. This is just for my measurements, you know, this is just for me. You might want to start increasing sooner, or you might want to start increasing later, depending on your measurements. But yeah, just for a little bit to grow the length till it gets to like my hips, I think. That's not, yeah, I'm not going to start increasing till then. So for me that's round 9 through to 16. And then after that what I do is I start increasing every 20th stitch. I put 2 double crochets into the same stitch, and then follow that with a round of just straight double crochets, no increase, followed by a round of 2 double crochets into every 20th stitch, and then a straight round of no increase. And I just keep doing that until I've increased to a width that I'm happy with. And for me, I don't want it to be too wide, like I want it to just kind of be straight, you know, I don't want it to be too wide, but you can make it as wide as you want. You can also increase on every 10th stitch if you want for more of sort of like a ruffled skirt. Yeah, so I'm going to do that. I think for me, the increases, I do about 3 or 4 rounds of increase with the double crochet into 2 DCs into every 20th stitch for me. But yeah, that's just what I do. Okay, so I think that's all you really need to know at this point. We're just going to go away and do that. Obviously at the end of every round you slip stitch into the top of the chain 2, chain up 2, turn the work, go back in the other direction, and we just need to meet back up again now when we've finished our skirts, and that means we've completed the dress section. Then we're going to work on doing the straps. So let's go away, we'll complete our skirts to what we want, you know, increase to what we want and the length that we want. We'll meet back up soon and I'll show you how to do the straps. Okay, so now that I've finished the skirt, we're going to start work on the straps of the dress. So as you can see, I do have a nice amount of yarn left for the straps and for the single crochet edging that I wanted to do on the sides, which is really good. Okay, so to begin, I'll just show you I've marked out where I'm going to be putting the straps, and I've also marked out on the sides where I'm going to be marking out with the single crochets where you thread the straps through around your back, you know, obviously to hold the top on. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by moving to the bottom of that midsection that you did, so just there. Moving to that midsection just there, and you're going to be putting, you're going to find sort of that first stitch just there that joins, I mean it doesn't really matter where you do this, but this is how we're going to do it just to be neat. So sort of find that first stitch that joins the skirt to that midsection just there, and put your hook through, then get the end of your yarn that you have left over, which is excellent, and finding the end of that yarn, you're going to make a slip knot. So making a slip knot, you're going to pull that slip knot through that stitch just there that you've put your hook through. So pull that slip knot through and adjust the knot lightly to your hook because you don't want it to be too tight. Oh, try not to break things. So adjust the knot lightly, just like that. I was holding the wrong bit. Just like that. And then chain up one. Now into that same stitch that you have put your slip knot and chain one, you're going to put a single crochet beside that chain one. So just into the same stitch, single crochet. Try and go into the stitch if you're using tricky yarn like me, which it is very tricky yarn. There we go. Single crochet. So just like that. There we go, we did it. And then we're going to edge around up the sides. So for this midsection, there's obviously double crochets, and on the side of each double crochet there should be 2 spots for you to put a single crochet into. So just like this. Find those 2 spots. So there's the first end of that row of double crochet. So 1, and then moving along there's a spot there. So that's 2. This single crochet edging is just going to make it look a lot neater. So into the next row end there'll be 2 spots. So you can see there's like 2 spots just there. 1 there, 1 there. So put a single crochet, 1 and 2. And remember there's 6 rows of this double crochet. So moving on to the other row end just here, you're going to put in your single crochet there, and then moving on to the next space in that row end. There. So there's 6 rows, so there'll be 12 single crochets up until you reach the circle. Okay, now here we are at the circle, and all we're going to do is just go straight into the stitches, working up the side of that circle of the dress. So go into that first one there, and then into every stitch until you get to the first stitch marker. So work in single crochets till you get to that marker. Okay, now that I've reached that first stitch marker, we're not going to go into the V of the stitch. So what we can do is we can take out that stitch marker and just where the stitch marker was, go in underneath the V and in between those 2 spokes of the stitch. So put in 1 single crochet, then beside that exactly the same, another single crochet. And there we go, and that'll help to mark out where you're going to be threading through the strap when it comes time to wear the dress. So then just work another single crochet lot up until the next, oh that's a double crochet, don't do that. Into the V's again, working into the V's of the stitches, working up to the next stitch marker. Okay, here we are at the next stitch marker, and once again we're going to take out that marker and put 2 single crochets between those spokes just there. So 1 and 2. Then working up the side, we're going to work all the way up till the next stitch marker, which is going to be for the strap. So then we're going to talk about how to do the strap once we get to that point. Alright, now that we've reached our next stitch marker and the marker for the strap, we're going to take that marker out. Taking that out, put it aside. And we're going to put a single crochet between those two spokes just there. So single crochet. Yep, single crochet in there. And from here, after that first single crochet, we're going to chain 300. So chain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, chain 300. Okay, now that I've chained 300, what we're going to do is we're going to, counting one chain back from the hook, so skipping the first chain. Let's make sure this is focused properly. No. Yes. Alright, skipping that first chain just there, you're going to slip stitch into the second chain along, and you're going to slip stitch into every chain till you reach the beginning of that 300. So I know this seems a little fiddly and time consuming, but it's worth it to reinforce the strap and to make it a little less sharp so that when you do it up it doesn't dig into your back as much, and it's a little more cushiony, I guess. So yeah, slip stitching all the way back to the beginning of that 300, and I'll meet you then and we'll talk about where to go from there. Okay, now here we are back at the beginning of that chain, and what we're going to do now is we're going to single crochet just beside that single crochet that we put right before the chain. So right beside that single crochet we put another single crochet into the same space. And there we go. And that is for the first chain. Now we put a single crochet into every stitch up until the next stitch marker, which will be the next strap, and you're just going to do exactly the same thing as you've done here. So single crochet into that space, chain of 300, slip stitch back into all the chains back to the beginning of the chain of 300, single crochet back into that space where you put the first single crochet, and then single crochet until the next chain until the next stitch marker, where you will put 2 single crochets into the same space, so just like on the other side. And those single crochets, or 2 single crochets into those spaces, will be for where you're going to thread the straps when you want to wrap it around the back. So yeah, that's what we're doing. And then you're going to single crochet all around the edging. So that's what I'm doing. I'm going to go ahead and finish this because I think this tutorial is already quite long. So I'm going to finish up the dress, and I think you know where to go from here, which is great. Alright, so we're going to finish up our dresses. We're going to try them on later. We'll see how they look. Thank you for watching this tutorial. I hope you've enjoyed, and I hope you've made a really cute dress. Like I said at the beginning, if you like this video, please give it a like. If you haven't subscribed, I'd really love for you to subscribe to join me for some more tutorials. I have plenty more coming. Also, there'll be an extra video, well, there'll be extras in the video that I'm going to be adding to Patreon, so just wanted to mention that. Alright, well, thank you. I will see you again shortly. We'll try our dresses on, we'll see how they look. Yeah, see you soon. Okay, and here is the finished dress. And I'm really, really happy with this design. I'm really happy with the way it turned out. I think it looks really good. So yeah, it's definitely something I'm going to be wearing out in public. In fact, the first thing I'll be wearing when I get to go out in public again. Soon, hopefully. Yeah, so very simple to make, very quick, very easy, and not much yarn to it. So this is obviously done with a cottony blend, so the yarn's not very thick, it's quite fine. I'd say I used maybe, I don't know, 3 skeins of 50 grams of this Mondial Brilliantina yarn. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching.